Yeah, here we are, second part of this video on turn 17 of EU. I noticed I forgot to spend for a declaration of war on the Incans, so I pumped that into play. Spain really wants to take them out and achieve whatever they can get out of that possibility, as well as pursuing their war in the Netherlands. Perhaps walking through France and helping the French Catholics out by marching through them. Well, it turns out I just failed my reading comprehension here. Not surprising. Section 2 of the Wars of Religion is if the event's currently active and it comes again, you mark it off, you don't reapply the whole thing, you don't start a new revolt or anything, but that's how the three Henrys get started. It has nothing to do with the Henrys themselves. It just indicates that there's an intensification. So if you can't squelch the revolts quickly enough, then there's a good chance that they may occur again in another turn. And then the negotiated end becomes impossible. Good enough for me. Poor troubled France. They reached twice into the mercenary pool. Nobody else was really interested in buying any. It's 20 bucks they spent on it then because nobody was bidding against them. And they managed to get two things they can't even use, an explorer and a conquistador. They're actually not allowed to use them. They're not allowed to use their rush of colonists to colonize Quebec, which they know about. So they stuck themselves to just 2 stacks of units. They went for the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, rolled a 7, one short of what they need. Now they're still going to penalize the Protestant or the rebellion, whatever the rebellion is, because it could switch, the value of their replacement points, but or reinforcement points. But they were hoping to get Coligny out of the game here. That would strengthen their position significantly, because he's as good a leader as Montmorency. Finish the economics. Turkey's in a lot of trouble monetarily. They maintaining that big army, which isn't too huge a cost, but it's significant, 60 bucks or so. They may want to dismantle some of it because they're kind of short on cash. So I may be tweaking them 40 bucks or something and pulling these guys apart. But at the same time, they increased their technology and bumped themselves over the arquebus. They had to raise an exceptional tax. They took out loans, everything, to try to pay for this. They want to finish the Persians off. They may not be able to do it this turn, but the next turn, Islam doesn't get a technology advance either. So by putting themselves up here, it's kind of cool. Likewise, the French and British kind of got a freebie hump over the Latin sail. That's now up to the Turks to advance past. England's planning on sending Drake out for an attempted circumnavigation, or at least to find what he can find. And let's see. I don't know if there's anything else too exciting to report. I've got to roll up the miners, make my decisions. The Dutch especially have some tough choices to make with so many miners at war under their command. A lot's going on in a round like this, so I kind of want to touch base more often than just once around. Coligny made an attack into here, well, moved into there to siege it, got intercepted, and ended up being driven back. The Russians positioned themselves for Astrakhan. They've finished off Siberia. Yes, there's still a couple of spaces they haven't explored yet, but Siberia is destroyed, which means they can start building their colonies. That's a powerful advantage, really. I guess we're moving on. Oh, I know. I wanted to touch on the Danes sliding down into place to attack the Habsburgs. No one else really can in terms of the Protestants. Also, something I missed during the purchase phase, the English managed to expand into the Massachusetts Bay Colony. A little bit of follow-up. The Spaniards, Santa Cruz shipped Farnese into place here. He's going to continue on to the New World to grab the gold. He's kind of got to worry because there's a Dutch fleet out there waiting for the gold fleet. Unfortunately, that fleet got hurt pretty bad by exploring. The Habsburgs, Wallenstein, Franz Joseph all combined took heirs. Bohemia is going to fall this turn, that's pretty guaranteed. Bavaria and Württemberg cracked heads together to no real effect. And the French slammed in here and failed. I mean, not terribly. The English, oh boy. So, this is what happened to good old Sir Francis. Great leader, tried to explore 2 territories, ended up dead along with his backup explorer. He's got his fleet's got to go back, and well, there goes the circumnavigation. No way I want to use Hawkins for exploration type events. So he's just too lousy, really. He's fine using him as a privateer or whatever, but as an explorer, he sucks. Alright, I think all we got left is Turkey. And to close out the round, the Turks got driven back by the Persian army, but there's very little Persian army left, just a couple cav left. They can't stand against the Turkish army. They'll be eliminated completely. They do have some reserves back here I forgot about that I got to bring into play. But, yeah, they're in a lot of trouble right now. And the Turks have positioned themselves to sail another army into place so that they can, launch attacks on maybe Kars and Georgia at the same time. And, maybe speed things up. I did eliminate those 2 units and took back the money for them. That was a nice wad of money, actually. It was, I don't know, like $60, $70, something around there that they saved by not keeping those units. It's always bad when you have to pull your units out of play. But, it's, sometimes it's just necessary. And yes, I had to go back and make a decision there. If I was playing alone, or if I was playing just one country, I probably wouldn't have that kind of problem where I'd forget something like that, I hope. And certainly I wouldn't go back on it at such a late point. But when I'm playing so many countries, it's very easy to screw things up, especially when there's so much going on here. So I do like to replace those things. Oh, I forgot to mention what happened with the Spanish down here, I think. They managed to conquer the first Incan territory, but they lost their explorer. And now they've got to figure out what they can do. I don't think they have a leader. Yes, they have this guy that they can send down there to take command and see if he can finish this job off. He's not an explorer, though, which means he's got a hard time of finding the space. That's going to be troublesome. Okay, so the Dutch are playing a little bit of hardball here. They sailed out here, used their explorer, and sometimes I get explorer and conquistador mixed up in my speaking, to discover Veracruz, and now they've got it basically blockaded. That gold fleet can't just slip out now. The Dutch slipped through and by the Spanish fleet. It tried to intercept them, not trusting whatever it was up to. It just, it might be bigger, it might not be, but you want to fight this battle if you can. You don't want to let the Dutch fleet out to do whatever it can do, because I'm sure whatever it can do is scary. But they failed. So now they're going to have to make their way to the New World and fight that fleet as well. And the Danes came down and laid siege to Schlesien, and actually no, that's Silesia. Yeah. Huh. Okay. And Wallenstein was unable to catch them. Alright, well, these turns are getting ultra heavy. The Spaniards. Santa Cruz tried to slip in, and he was caught, knocked down to like 2 ships total. He had been outnumbered and outmatched technologically slightly. Anyhow, but now it looks like he's got no chance of getting the gold fleet through. That's a problem. As long as the Dutch stay there, Santa Cruz is probably going to stay there. They just don't want to risk trying to slide it in by them. It's not a true blockade. I don't believe those are allowed yet with the technology we have. Fernice made it here, started doing his anti-rebel. These are heading this way. Don Juan, well, he's a naval leader right now. He's a naval leader for the turn. He can't flip the way some of the leaders can. Over here, Wallenstein beat the Turks out of Silesia. Actually, I get an extra victory point for that, for breaking the siege that I didn't mark. The Shah tried to gather his forces here. He was intercepted, and he drove the Turks off. Lucky die roll on his side. Doesn't count as a victory, but, you know, he caused... First of all, he got his troops together, but he also caused a casualty to the Grand Vizier, and all kind of cool stuff like that. Alright. And all the excitement, or whatever, of the Dutch turn, I missed the Protestants. But looking at their situation, I don't know if that's that big a deal. They're outnumbered by the French armies, and kind of want to maintain a defensive position here. So they're going to stay where they are. For the French turn, they have a bit of a struggle. Trying to push in here at Provence, they got intercepted, knocked back. Montmorency made an attack on Coligny, got knocked back. He's really reduced Coligny's force quite a bit, though. But then, in the attrition from the withdrawal, he took 40% losses, which makes him significantly weaker. But Coligny's down to very, very little, let me see. 5 infantry and 4 artillery. I don't want to spend that. They have such a big artillery battery there. I don't want to just get rid of that. But it might be better to turn that into a detachment just to reduce chances of losing due to just the regular combat losses. You know, 9 losses. They easily took more than that in the battle. Alright. And we end the round with the English getting their ships back. Actually, they made it back with no losses. Lucky them. And the Turks establishing a siege down here at Mosul. They didn't want to directly confront the Shah. He didn't get an interception in place. Now they got another army to move in against Tiflis, perhaps. It's not the locations they'd like to be capturing. They'd love to take Kars. But, you know, it provides for a better shape to their country if it comes down to it. And it's getting them closer to being able to intervene if the Russians continue against Crimea, as I'm sure they will at some point. Right now, Turkey can't do much about Astrakhan. They really don't want the Russians to have a port on the Caspian Sea, but they don't have a good answer to it. During the Dutch turn, we see more of the same, but the Danish king marched down to lay siege against Urs. Wallenstein intercepted him, and his army was defeated rather heavily. Even heavier losses on the attrition table, and things look pretty potent. It looks like the Danes have kind of won the battle for Bohemia at this point. Now, of course, they have to actually besiege the cities. Oops, that's actually a Saxon thing. This is one reason the EU8 map is probably better. It blows things up so that there's bigger territories. Of course, that's going to have a bigger footprint. Probably worth it for me, but I don't have the printing capability right now. Alright, well, Russia continues its progress. It's discovered all of Siberia, and they're kind of going to wait here, build a colony, and then push forward from there. They've also started getting some results on the siege of Astrakhan. That's going to be a hard siege because it's a port city. They don't have a lot of artillery compared to it. It's a level 2 city, so it's kind of iffy whether or not they'll get this round, this turn. Right now it's just at minus. The Spanish, well, they're continuing to move forward and trying to deal with the revolt situations. They've done a pretty good job here with Farnese, but these guys, aren't really capable of handling it. You'll see both Spanish and Dutch privateers hunting the Spanish coastline. The Spanish would like to wipe the Dutch out of there. It's not going to be permanent. Privateer losses come back 1 per round if you... Well, by the way the rules are written, they just come back. I make the countries actually expend a trading option on it, even though they don't have to spend the points. I don't know if that's reasonable or not, but it seems like the merchants would be coming into there. It would be more of a focus of their economic power, so I kind of tweaked the rules that way. The Spanish army down here with the new leader got destroyed trying to go into Cusco, just wiped out. That's not good for Spain. They'll be getting the leader back at some point, but it basically means that their operations against the Incas have failed. And finishing up another round. Not a lot here. The Turks succeeded in taking Kurdistan. They failed in their attack on Georgia. The Shah again screened them. Kurdistan, though, fell. Honors of war. Turks may be happy to hold here because we're getting kind of late in the rounds. They don't have a lot of money. They just don't think that they have a lot of chance of gaining another territory. And maybe be able to get a piece of level 1 and another chunk out of Persia. Dutch are continuing to get their house in order in the Netherlands itself. The problem they saw this last turn was, well, they had secured some of it, but it all washed back over. There were so many revolts in place, so they're trying to make sure they get them all cleared up, or at least all but maybe, you know, what's right at one edge, so that they don't end up with them spread all over the place like they had last turn. What they're finding, though, is maintaining this patrol is really getting painful. Their fleet is slowly getting smaller and smaller. Pretty soon it won't qualify as a fleet minus anymore. And at that point the Spanish might try to break through. Maybe not. Spain's not ready to chance that yet. We did the Russians. They are getting some power over in Astrakhan. Yeah, beginning to get that siege underway. The Spanish have laid siege here to Antwerp. And the Habsburgs, Wallenstein got sacked temporarily, but the Habsburg army, though mostly destroyed, pushed the Danes out of here with a victory. Serenity is a little worried about fighting another round. He has almost nothing left. He has like 5 strength points at most. But he got some good rolls and was able to drive the Danes off, which is all you really need at this point. It's just to try to prevent those sieges from taking place. However, he's not going to be able to get the Sudetenland with no forces, and doesn't really have any allies he can call on. I'm trying to figure out what these Hessians are doing. Oh yeah, they're still defensive. Yeah, his only allies are Cologne and... Damned if I can even remember. This is going to get harder and harder. But he's got another ally somewhere. I don't remember who it is. Well, Bavaria, but he lost the Bavarian army there. Thuringia. Thuringia is his other ally, which is over here. And he can't move those. And as things kind of grind down, the French are continuing, opening up another siege. Turks threw the Algerian privateers into play. But we've pretty much run down another round, and there was not an end to this one. Turks don't have enough money to keep going, but there isn't much that the Persians can do about it. Alright, the 5th round opens up with the Dutch turn. Their turn is the most painful of everyone's because of all the miners they have. First of all, this thing's down from a fleet to just a detachment now, which means it's about the same size as the Spanish, but they figure it's about twice the size actually because they're down to 2. They can make that guesstimate, but they don't know the exact numbers. The Huguenots have opened up a siege. They don't have enough strength here to do so, and they're kind of worried about what's happening, but not really willing to fight over it. The Danes made an attack on Serenity, and they failed. Sort of an effective screening was done there where their troops were unable to get grips on them and ended up withdrawing, taking heavy attrition losses. So the Danish army is pretty weak at this point. William marched into the Antwerp area and cleared it. Parma. Farnese, right? His whole army was wiped out. That's the 2nd army he's lost in the Netherlands so far. You're kind of surprised he still has a job. with the fixed leaders, this is what has to happen in this game. But in some games like Civil War, I want more than that. Anyway, we'll move on and see what else we've got coming. Okay, well, we ended this turn. And about 5 rounds, a little over the average, not heavily. Spanish didn't make it back with the gold fleet. That gold is just sitting there. But they've got a problem because they produce more gold than they can send home well, over 2 turns, they can't send all their gold home in a single gold fleet expedition. So that's kind of a difficulty they're having. They're bottled up. They maybe should have taken a risk at trying to force run not the blockade as such. It's sort of a very loose blockade where they could actually run it. Because normal station type isn't allowed. Not a lot else happened. Spanish dealt with some revolts here. Zorini moved over to Thuringen, prepare to have some troops there, see what he can do, but the rounds didn't last long enough. The Russians got a breach, which means they get to stay there, but they didn't manage to overcome it. Like I said, that's tough to do. Most of the players have just kind of sat back on their hands, the French continuing their sieges. One of them got far enough they get to keep it, the other one did not, which means they'll lose it. But yeah, otherwise, not a lot going on. I think the French are going to try for that negotiated peace. It's not what they hoped for, but things don't look terribly good for them, and they'd rather it than nothing. Things are really bad for the Spaniards, though. Anyway, I guess I'll do all the end-of-turn bookkeeping stuff. Okay, and that's the end of the 1570 turn. 1575 is going to have a Latin technological improvement. Point-wise, yeah, things shifting around. Spain's clearly doing very poorly. They're netting at 20 right now. But Russia's still holding up. They haven't gotten hit hard yet. And actually, I don't know. Maybe this game actually helps them a little bit. I'm not sure. Venice making some good ground. Other countries, Turkey's doing okay. England's doing pretty well. France also pretty well in the 130s. France managed to get the negotiated peace. Lucky shot. They needed, I think an 8 to get a white peace, which is what they went for. And they got it, which clears up their problem. Makes them the only person with reasonable stability right now. Everybody else has kind of had failures in their attempts to up their stability or didn't get the peace. Russia would have, well, Russia couldn't get it, but Turkey would have liked a peace with Persia. They didn't get that. So, Habsburgs tried to knock Denmark out of the war. They wouldn't leave. Protestants tried to knock Bavaria out of the war. They wouldn't leave. All kind of stuff like that. Alright, well this one's going up, and we'll start on another turn.